And we are back. Ooh, what a wonderful song to play. Thank you, Nolan. And we are back with our guest today, Mr. Aaron Goldstein. Did I say that correctly?
You said it perfectly.
Aaron is a former public defender, a former intern with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. I loved hearing that the summer you worked for them, they came up with the notion that helped a lot of kids get into public schools who were homeless. We'll go later to that, but currently he's here because, as Michael said, he is in a semi-crowded field to replace an organization seat in the state legislature.
Fill us in. What does that mean?
Well, it means it's a seat that's been in control of the Cook County Democratic Organization for many years, namely Richard Mell.
It's Mel's organization, and when he retired from city council, he got his daughter appointed, and so she gave up her seat in the 40th district, and they put in another member of their organization, and now there's a bunch of people running for that seat.
That's right. So this is
said it all.
It's an open. It's an open.
Aaron,
race.
how does it look for you with all those people? Is that an advantage or a disadvantage having a crowded field?
You know, we don't know. I mean, it's a small enough race where we haven't had any polling done, so we don't know specifically how that will help or hurt me. The voter turnout in that district has been extremely low.
Right.
The last comparable race we had in 2012, which was actually a presidential primary, out of 48,000 registered voters, there was about 6,000 that voted. So
that's incredible. But that's also a feature of organizational politics. When the organization takes over and people just don't feel any hope at all, the turnout goes down, way down, year after year.
Who do they have to vote for?
Exactly.
And what the machine is able to do is they have a certain loyal number of followers, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But there is this grand amount of voters that actually can vote untapped that are sick of the dynasty.
Yeah.
And the problem with the dynasty is it's not responsive to the people. So you just have these familial or organizational dynasties that really they're just going to do whatever they can to maintain the power. There's no ideology to it. Mm-hmm. There's no philosophy to it. It's just, how do I maintain my power?
Okay, speaking of ideology and philosophy.
Yes.
Lay some of it on us, Aaron. What's your ideology and philosophy?
I think it's fair enough to say that I would be termed a progressive. I've lived my whole life.
You got to be careful. That term gets used by a lot of people these days.
It does. I think I have the chops to back it up. You mentioned, I work for the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. I work for Legal Assistance Foundation, and then I was a Cook County public defender. My whole life as a lawyer has been one to fight for the underdog. Before then, I went to University of Illinois. University of Illinois had a mascot called Chief Alinowick.
Yep.
I did everything I could to stop that. Protests. My journal article at law school was published against Chief Alinowick and the impact of Native American mascots. In 1996, there was the Latino March on Washington, which was arguing for a lot of the same issues that are being argued to this day.
Yep.
I helped organize our faction at the University of Illinois to go down there and coordinate that event.
Were you at Champaign or Chicago?
Champaign.
Uh-huh.
Hence the
And where did you grow up?
They don't have a line of wick here in Chicago.
Well, it's the same university. Okay.
They're the Flames.
Okay. I sit corrected.
He knows his stuff. He knows his sports mascot.
I sit corrected, and we will go on. Where did you grow up?
West Rogers Park.
Oh.
So I'm very familiar with the heartland. Actually played Little League Baseball at Potawatomi Park. So I'm very familiar, Decatur, which is in West Rogers Park as well, and Lane Tech High School. That's where I went to high school. So
totally a local dude.
Absolutely.
All right. So you are facing. How often do you run into what would appear to be a Michael Madigan lookalike in your campaign in the 40th?
Well, what I do know is that the current state rep who was appointed by Mr. Mell has received a lot of money from Mr. Madigan. And look at the timing of things. There was the pension bill in December. That passed in the House by 2 votes. One of those 2 votes that put it over the top was my opponent.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, Michael Madigan has contributed significantly to my opponent. And he, in fact, has been doing what they call push polling against
Yes.
me. So I was and I am a criminal defense attorney. So the questions would be, well, does that bother you that Mr. Goldstein represents accused criminals? They don't use the word accused; they just say criminals.
Sure.
And would he be soft on crime? So they're clearly afraid of me. They're clearly trying to, make me look bad. And that's Madigan's fingerprints all over.
Are they doing that to any of your other candidates? Do you know?
I'm familiar with one other. Nancy Schiavone is another opponent as well. I think they probably see her and myself as the two.
The biggest threats.
Correct.
And for you, what are you looking at as your biggest lift up the voters and bring them to vote for you issue? Would it be the pensions? Would it be fair taxing structures?
I think it's all that. But if we put it all together, it's no one fights for the poor. The word poor isn't even used in politics anymore. No one works for the working class. So if you take those very, very general issues, and I know we have to be more specific, but if you take those general issues, that's not what's being discussed or even fought for. The constant question is, well, why did you get into politics? Why are you doing this? Like I said, with apologies, the word progressive, but there is a lack in this country, the state, the city of true progressives. And then there's also a lack of people with courage. And you take the pension vote, for example, which is a huge issue, but it's bigger than just the issue of pensions. It's the absolute attack on workers, on teachers, on labor. And you look at that attack, it's systematic, and it's now going to the city. And what did Senate President Cullerton say? He was interviewed by Carol Marin not too long ago, and she said, "Well, what about shared sacrifice? Where's the corporate community to help out in this budget hole?"
Right.
And what Cullerton said was, "Well, they were very helpful in lobbying." That's what he said. So what does that mean?
Lobbying for what? Themselves, right?
Yeah, they gave a lot of money to get this passed.
John.
And that is not being discussed. That will not, any of these issues will not be fought for if we have our current state rep in there.
Aaron Goldstein, what is your sense about whether the pension bill that was passed, I think, by a lot of some good state reps and probably some good state senators sort of throwing up their hands, not knowing what to do. What's your sense about what's going to happen in court with this?
My feeling is, reading the law, it's clearly unconstitutional. And what people haven't discussed, and I haven't read the briefs, but not only is it unconstitutional per the state constitution, I think it's unconstitutional per the United States Constitution. There's a portion of the U.S. Constitution, I don't want to bore everyone with constitutional law, but it's called the Contract Clause,
Right.
which says that states cannot interfere with contracts.
Right.
These pensions are contracts.
Yes.
And what they're doing is they're interfering with it, and they're diminishing those contracts. There's actually precedent in other states where they've challenged it under the United States Contract Clause. And won. Some have lost, but some have won as well. So my only concern, and let's be honest, who was exempted from this pension bill?
The legislators.
Well, who else?
I assume the governor and all those
The
guys.
judges.
Oh yeah, the judges, right?
And who's going to decide
right,
whether
that's
this is unconstitutional or
Yeah.
not? That's my fear.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some good-hearted judges who are going to follow the law. And what happens a year from now, 2 years from now, when this is found unconstitutional? Where are we at? Now we got to do this all over again. But I guess the people who voted for it, they're not thinking that. They figure this is somehow helpful for the next election.
Okay, although I don't see it that way, let's talk about the possible albatross around your neck, which is named Blagojevich.
Uh-huh.
I, in fact, meeting you now, I like it even more that you were defending Blagojevich. You came in for his second.
I was there for his first and second.
Oh, you were. So
Yes.
you worked with Sam
Adams.
How was that?
It was an experience, and we don't have all the time in the world, but I'd love to come back. We could talk
You
about
should
it all
write
the time.
about it.
I've thought about that a lot. There's definitely a lot I've learned.
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating experience. And everyone says, well, how could you do that? Could you represent the individual? And the first question I asked is, did we not want him to have an attorney? You know, last week you had Michael Deutsch, who represented the NATO 3.
Right.
Did we not want them to have an attorney?
Right.
I definitely wanted them to have an attorney.
And by the
you
way,
actually handled a case from that too.
I've handled a couple cases from NATO protesters as well as the Occupy protesters. So talking about the Occupy protesters, they were on LaSalle Street, and they were sitting there peacefully protesting day after day after day. And remember, the Occupy movement, what really a watershed event it's been.
Totally.
The
Totally.
99% is now in
Part of our language.
Absolutely.
It's embedded.
It's embedded.
I love it.
All because some people said we're going to sit out here until we're heard.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what happened? They were sitting on LaSalle Street downtown, and Rahm Emanuel took the police and kicked them off and took them to Grant Park. They basically just pushed them off to the park.
Right.
And then they mass arrested every single one of those protesters. We challenged that in court. It was found unconstitutional.
Beautiful.
It is now being appealed by the city. So you talk about
Another
how
waste
much
of money?
Absolutely. So Rahm Emanuel talks about we have no money. We can't serve mental health institutions. We can't help out the schools. We
thank
can't do
you
all these
so
things.
much for uniting these two.
Yeah, but we're going to appeal what we did, which was unconstitutional, arresting peaceful protesters. These are regular folks. They're not committing crime. They're sitting there trying to have their voices
You mean
heard.
they have no Molotov cocktails in their hands
No
and stuff like that?
Molotov cocktails. No card-carrying members of the Socialist Party of America. But the NATO
There
protest.
is no such party, is there?
Yeah, there is. There is.
So the NATO protest. I represented an individual who tore down the NATO banner on the Michigan Avenue Bridge. This guy.
Thank you for representing him.
Listen to this story.
He served 2 terms in Iraq, and he suffered from PTSD. He saw best friends die. He had an IED explode right in front of him and suffered many physical injuries, but PTSD is the most important.
Yeah.
He would come to court and he would have scars on his wrists from self-mutilation
Self-cutting.
and attempts at suicide. And he would turn to me. He was charged with a felony for ripping down a banner at the Michigan Avenue Bridge. He turns to me in the middle of court and says, "Aaron, why did I fight?" So the individual that tears down a banner, he gets charged with a felony. But the people that tore down our economy, they get a bailout.
Thank you.
Boom.
Boom.
So that's just absolutely wrong. This man was homeless and jobless, and he wants to protest a war state, which represented in the NATO protest, and he gets arrested and charged with a felony. The other individual actually was right underneath that banner being torn down. This other individual walked past this lieutenant, and the lieutenant punched him right in the face, and then charged the person who was punched with aggravated battery. We took it to trial. He was found not guilty. And
Because there was videotape of it.
there was videotape all over. There was
We love this videotape.
Yeah, so I mean, if you had not had that, that's the kind of thing that they pulled all the time. The police
he would have lost.
riot in '68 was all about the police riot, and without tape to say, no, it was actually you who hit me, not these guys all.
No, it
Go off
saved saved this poor guy's life. He was facing 3 to 7 years in prison.
Aaron Goldstein, as a new candidate, this is your first run for public office. How did you put together an organization? What have you done, and what are you encouraging people to do, and how can people who want to help you get in touch with you?
Absolutely. First, they can go to my website. That's citizensforgoldstein.com, citizensforgoldstein.com. Whenever you start, if you throw your hat in the ring, you have to start small. You start with your family and your close friends. And my mother, my sister, my whole family has been just unbelievably supportive. They've done everything they can to help me out. And then that expands. So then friends talk to friends, and then we walk door to door, and then we start making phone calls, and then those friends become, it goes further out into the not so close friends, and then the people in the neighborhood, and then you go to the community organizations and you start talking to them, and it's a slow move. So, and then it goes to social media, and you start getting your name out there, and hopefully, with radio programs like this, now we're going to gain even more followers.
The masses are out there listening, Aaron.
Exactly. Power to the people.
More people than you think.
Yeah,
No,
it is.
absolutely.
Aaron, how many, or what is the boundaries of the 40th?
Certainly. It's
or neighborhoods it includes.
we have to love redistricting and gerrymandering, so it's not a perfect box in any way, but it basically, the Kennedy runs right through it. It's the northwest side of Chicago, so it goes about as far north as right around Foster to about as far south as Logan.
Wow.
But it hits
That's a
Logan
lot.
more towards Western.
Okay.
And then Kedzie is the longest north-south street that goes through it, and then Irving, Addison, and Belmont are the longest east-west streets
Okay.
that go through it. So it's like Old
A
Irving.
very good description.
Yeah,
Thank
Albany
you.
Park and Avondale are some of the biggest communities there.
Interestingly enough, I've noticed people starting to talk about the progressive movement is moving off the lakefront and into the northwest side, southwest side. I'd be amazed to see it actually happen on the southwest side, but
Don't worry,
I'm open
have
to
hope,
it.
Kate.
I'm open to it. But you represent part of that move, I think.
No,
You-
absolutely. And my neighboring district, the 39th, which
Will
is
Gazzardi's running there for state rep.
absolutely, and he's going up against another familial dynasty. So,
Right.
so it can be done. He ran last time, lost by 120 votes. Who knows who those 120 were? But he's going for it again.
Well,
And-
they're running some dirty politics
Ooh,
against
yeah.
him right now. He's
Yeah.
definitely he's a challenge for them, and
Yeah, he deserves
we wish him well.
support.
He's been a guest on the show. We are going to run out of time for this segment.
I want to ask a couple questions.
You got to do it quick, Kate.
I will. Where do you stand, Aaron Goldstein, on hydraulic fracking in the state of Illinois?
completely against it. We need to put a moratorium
Hallelujah.
and ban it.
Okay, good. That's one of our big issues up here. And casinos?
You know, I'm against casinos. If someone presented a plan that can be somehow highly, highly regulated, I would look at it. But I don't think that's the way we need to start revenue or create revenue. We have a progressive income tax, which I completely support. I would even, I think a big issue is legalizing marijuana. Why does Colorado, why do Washington get all these funds, and why are we arresting brown and black people for no particular reason other than, to me, no different than smoking cigarettes and drinking
And it's an
alcohol?
issue for. I don't understand why the state legislators haven't. They went for medical marijuana. We have probably the most conservative medical marijuana bill in the country, or policy, and other states are going for legalization. I think that hopefully the
All I
state
know
reps
is-
will take a different tack.
All I
For
know is-
every reason, it'd be great to the state.
It cracks me up to see the front page where Ed Burke is, arguing with somebody about getting more medical marijuana delivery stations in Chicago. I don't know. Something about it just cracks me up.
All right, we're out of time for this segment. The vote is on March 18th, right?
Correct? Early voting
And
starts
is
March
it
3rd.
too late to register?
I think we have a couple more days.
We have a couple more days till Tuesday. Tuesday is the end of outright voter registration. You can, after that, go downtown and register, but you have to vote at the same moment in the grace period.
Okay, let's have a big round of applause for Aaron Goldstein. Aaron, will you tell us your email one more time?
Citizensforgoldstein.com.
All right, we'll be right back.